What's going on, guys? It's the RPO College Football Podcast, and we are back live on here. You might be wondering what the heck is going on. We got all these extra people in here. We got our guys right here. We got my boy Jacob right down here. We got my boy Marcus right down there. I'm your host, Jerome Jones, and we are back with the College Football Podcast, man. We are happy and excited to be here, talk some college football. Jacob, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing quite well. My class got canceled, so I could be here. So hey, that's always great.
Hey, man, it's always some kind of balancing. You don't have class today. Hey, go on some football, talk some football. Let's do it.
Right. Better than talking about death of a salesman, man. I'm happy to be here.
Definitely. And my guy Lamarcus down there. How you doing, sir? How are you? You are currently muted. Lamarcus, we got you muted, sir. Unmute yourself, sir.
I'm sorry, man. It's been a long day, but I said I'm glad to be here.
Great, man. Definitely. If you guys don't notice, our guy Ray's not here right now. Keep your prayers in mind with him right now. He got some family issue he had to go through, but we're gonna hold it down from our guy Ray, man. We prayers out to you, man. Hope everything goes well and your family thing gets situated. But we be here. We're gonna talk some great football, man. We always excited to talk some football, and obviously, this couple of weeks, man, it's just been crazy because college playoffs are about to be like a thing now. Like, we got the rankings that are out now. We got, it's getting close. It's about to be December. You already know how that's gonna be out. So we got some great football coming, and I'm super excited to talk about it. But let's get some reviews in right now because last week was crazy. And we're going to talk about one of the first games, and we're going to talk about one of the hotter teams because they did lose earlier. But the Ohio State Buckeyes slightly winning against the Cornhuskers, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So I'm going to start with Jacob on this one. How do you feel about that game? Because it was only a 9-point game. The Cornhuskers looked like they was going to, might have put up the upset at one point. It was tied up. What's your take on that game?
Yeah, so it's always tough when you have conference matchups. It's like in professional sports how you always have to watch out for divisional games because they almost kind of even the slate a bit more. But Nebraska's a tough team. Although they're now 3-7, they still have a pretty good defense. They're only allowing opponents about 21 points a game right now. So they're always a team that's going to be a tough out. They can run the ball. I don't really have many opinions about him going forward to the next level, but Martinez gets the job done in college. It's just they good teams find ways to win. Good teams find ways to win. Ohio State found a way to win here. The receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba had a really good game. Really has been impressing me all year. They're a threat, man. They're an absolute threat. They have a three-headed monster at receiver, and they got a dangerous slate of games coming up, but they might be ready for the challenge. They certainly were this week.
Yeah, Ohio State, like you said, they played a team that's in their conference. It's a tough team. A team that they play every year, so they're familiar. But Ohio State only getting 90 yards rushing. I mean, they threw the ball like Stout, which is their freshman quarterback, 54 attempts. Lamarcus, You got something to say about that? Like, that's a high amount for a freshman.
Well, man, just the fact that Ohio State for the past few years, the running game hasn't been their bell cow. I mean, obviously they've relied on some really strong receivers. And some really good quarterbacks over the past few years. So actually having a run game is probably something that's not in their DNA at this moment, especially through recruiting. Losing Trey Sermon was definitely a big one. So, not having a true bell cow running back, that definitely will hurt you late in the season for sure.
Yeah, and for an Ohio State team that is known for the running game, I mean, they had Ezekiel Elliott, they had what's his name that just left, J.K. Dobbins, even Master T would look like somebody that was going to be good. They had Trey Sermon last year, only to have 90 yards, 21 attempts from Henderson, only 92 yards. I mean, and his
Yeah,
longest run was 22 yards. Like
yeah.
that's not enough for a Ohio State team. And I know me and Jacob was talking off screen a little bit that it's it, Ohio State might be overlooking some teams right now because they got a good slate of games coming up soon. Michigan State, Michigan. A couple of teams that are higher in the ranking that they still haven't played yet. Um, any suggestions or any concerns with the team right now?
I mean, well, for me, they're obviously not the team that we've seen in the past few years. Even the past like 5 6 years. Going to the playoff. And being just like a true contender this year. They have some dents in their armor for sure. Not having a run game like we just mentioned. So late in the season, having a run game is meant as much as like to think that the passing game is essential and what teams rely on is mainly primarily the run game that teams lean on heavily late in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the narrative is running a running game and a defense that's win championships, and they're them passing 54 times that gives the opposite team more opportunities to get interceptions. You already see stop or had 2 interceptions in this game, so I don't know. I just think that the philosophy right now is just not working with the running game, and again, Ohio State's always been known for the running game, so I don't know if they're gonna try it. I mean, it's not like they didn't try. They had 20. Henderson had 21 attempts. It just wasn't working. So I don't know if that's gonna be a good enough formula for them to win moving forward. But speaking of moving forward, we're gonna move forward as well with our next team, and we're gonna talk about the North Carolina Tar Heels versus the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Um, North Carolina 58 to 55. No defense in this game. That is 113 points with two teams. That's a lot of points.
Points.
So Lamar, let me start a review on this one. What's your takeaway from this game?
Well, this is a classic North Carolina rivalry. I think that having this, having these two teams put on this kind of showing, especially when people definitely thought that UNC could be a true contender in the playoff over the next few years. This is one of those games that kind of showed that they're not on that level yet. And um, regardless of how many points they're able to score, because they're definitely a fast team, a very fast team. But having a team put up 50 plus points on you defensively, there's no way that you could possibly be, you could hold up against some of the better opponents in college football.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I mean, it hits to their record. There was 5-4 at the time. Wake Forest is 8-1. Um, the funny thing is this game, Tar Heels were favored by 2.5 points, so they covered, well, almost covered the spread. But I just think it's funny that 113 points in one game with two good guys. But I do like North Carolina's offense because that was a big talk of this off season. I mean this during the season in itself because it was Sam Howell. How is he gonna play? Is he gonna be the guy? He needs to step up. And they really tried to rely on him, and it hasn't really panned out. Now that they rely a little bit more on the running game, you got Ty Chandler. I mean, 213 yards, 4 touchdowns. Chandler. I mean, um, Jacob, what'd you take away from Ty Chandler first and foremost in the game in general?
Well, these are the games you've been hoping for him to have. It's very hard for a team to replace 2,000-yard rushers, and that was one of the biggest question marks. Because they not only had to replace the receivers, they had to replace the running game. They had a really good transfer in from Tennessee with Chandler there, and these are the games I knew he could have. He definitely has talent. What's interesting is that they're using Hal a lot more in the run game, which is helping them somewhat win games like this. But I'm not sure how much it's like helping him draft wise. So it's kind of give and take because Sam Howell's definitely not a guy you want running the ball in the NFL like 20 times. But I They played really good against the defense that's kind of been lacking. Wake Forest got a really good offense. Hartman's having a really good season, but what's going to hamper them is if they can't stop anyone, that offense isn't going to mean anything.
Yeah, and this is the we talked about it earlier. I just think it's a formula that the Tar Heels sort of leaned on a little bit more to help out somehow. Maybe they wouldn't be struggling as much as they are this year. I mean, like you said, Kevin, 21 rushing yards for a quarterback is a little much, but it was effective. 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got with that. Any last words with that, Lamarcus?
I would say that Coach is definitely not known to be a quarterback whisperer, which is essentially why Sam Howell is running the ball that many times, especially when he was such a highly touted quarterback as far as the draft. So having him run the ball that many times it's kind of a tale of the story. Like Sam Howell's not going to be a first round quarterback like people would have thought.
Yeah, definitely, and that's I think that his stock will definitely plummet a little bit. We'll see how that goes with the rest of the season because you can kind of increase your stock a little bit more. But as far as being a first round quarterback, I think that might be out of the talks right now with his performance and his not being able to perform without a lot of his weapons. And that was the biggest talk when he lost a lot of weapons. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, kind of left with a whole new cast, and he been struggling with them. So, all right, let's move on to our next game. SMU versus the Memphis Tigers. The Tigers won 28-25. Great game. No running though. These teams do not like to run. Captain, what's your take on this one?
I mean, you look at it for SMU, it's just another really devastating loss for them back-to-back weeks. I mean, 2 weeks ago, they lost their first game to Houston on a kickoff return. This week, they're down 28-10, and they stormed their way back. With less than 2 minutes on the clock, they're already passing the 50. Fortunately, they throw an interception, but they're a good couple of plays away from going from 7-2 to being a 9-0 team right now. And good for Memphis. They kind of struggled this year, but they threw everything at SMU. Trick plays, running backs catching direct snaps, throwing it to the wide receivers, putting a lot of pressure on an SMU team that rarely lets Mordecai get hit. Memphis gave it our all this game, and it was enough. You got to feel for SMU here, though. They're a couple plays away from being undefeated still.
Oh yeah, and Memphis, they had to actually rally to come back and beat them. Being up, let me see, 10-7 at halftime.
Yeah,
and then Memphis started really just came back and dominated the rest of the second half. Lamarcus, what did you take on this game? And I think we lost Lamarcus. I'm not sure.
Lose him.
I think we lost him. But we will get his opinion on this after. But yeah, I think like you said, Mordecai barely gets sacked, and he was getting sacked a lot in this game. But to get back to Lamarcus, to get back to the running game, I mean, 61 yards for SMU, only 28 for Memphis. Lamarcus, what did you take on this game?
My take on that game, 2018, I had a chance to actually step on the field with Memphis, and one thing I can say about that program, with Coach previously before Coach Norvell left, I would say they were one of the more fast, speedy teams in all of college football, and they were definitely competitive in that conference. I think since Coach Norvell's left, they've definitely lost some of their identity as that kind of team. Definitely not the same team. SMU is, since the death penalty, they definitely come a long way. I think that it's definitely more of a competitive matchup, and it's not the same Memphis team that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Lamarcus, because this is the team that they've been producing running backs almost every year that goes to the NFL, and they're productive in the NFL.
All
Um,
right.
but to see a Memphis team only get 28 yards, I
Yeah.
mean, 24 attempts. I think combined out of the other players, that and 10 of them is from a runner. I mean, from a quarterback. So it's just like that's I don't know. It's just crazy that you got that amount of rushing yards from a Memphis team that been producing running backs so much this year. Um, Kevin, you got anything to add to their lack of running?
Yeah, no, it's very weird because Memphis is a team that I've said has been not RBU because obviously, Bama's Bama still, Georgia's Georgia. But like if you're looking for a good like sneaky top five team in the past like decade that's been producing running backs, and look further than Memphis, it's just not there for them this year. They still
Antonio
have.
Gibson,
Mhm.
Kenneth Gainwell,
They have Pollard, yeah.
Pollard. Like you can name a few of those
Kenny
guys that just
Gainwell,
came.
like they got guys. It's
Yeah,
just like I said, they still are able to stretch the field. Like they still have explosive playmakers. Like Calvin Austin III is one of my favorite players in college football. Really dynamic speedster, but you don't have back. Memphis had so many good NFL caliber running backs that they had to put guys who on 99% of college rosters would be a standout running back. They had to put them out in the slot and flex them out and divvy up their time, and you just don't see that from Memphis right now. Maybe they'll have someone in a year or two who's just not there yet. He's too young. It's hard for teams to replenish. Even the best teams still have to have like a down year at a position sometimes. But it's not the same for
yeah,
Memphis right now.
definitely, no,
It's not the
definitely.
same for this. Definitely doesn't look like the same Memphis team we've seen and are
I
accustomed
agree. It
to.
looked like they definitely changed their identity, like
Hmm.
August said. All right, but before we get to our next team, we want to thank everybody that are watching, all the new people in here. I know my guy Cody's in here watching, so I appreciate you. Y'all can put y'all comments. So we do have a live comments in here. So you want
We
to put
do.
your comments, put it in the comment section below. We will put it on the screen, and anything you want to like say, even if you want to just say hi, appreciate we do appreciate that. If you have any opinions on what we're saying, definitely put it in the comment section. We will put it on the screen. But let's get to our next game. We got the Baylor Bears versus the TCU Horned Frogs. 30-28 Horned Frogs winning. Tight game. Funny thing is Baylor was favored by 7.5 in for this game. Um, a lot of passing, a lot of passing for the TCU Longhorn Horned Frogs. Um, Lamarcus, I'm sorry with you on this one. A Big 12 matchup, rivalry game. What should take away from this one?
Man, that one thing I do know is that BCU that Baylor TCU rivalry or whatever they want to call it has definitely always been a shootout. That conference in itself is always a shootout. Defense is barely played, but one thing that you'll always see is a lot of points, a lot of passing, not much defense.
Yeah, yeah, you get a lot of that with these teams. I mean, that's always been a narrative of this Big 12 teams. That've been like the kind of running joke, if you say, you know, uh, none of them really have strong defenses. Kevin, what do you have to add to that?
Well, that's a tough thing because Baylor is supposed to be a defensive-minded team. That's kind of what they're notable for. That's kind of Dave Aranda's uh, mentality of defense first. And to see them against TCU, mind you, I'm pretty sure Max Duggan was out this.
He
If I'm
was
looking at my notes, yeah, Duggan was out this week, so backup Chandler Morris came in. You know, TCU's with
well done.
their interim. They're in an interim coach as well. This is their interim coach's first game as well.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of turnover for TCU here, and it was business as usual, if not better. Chandler Morris he had 531 yards of offense combined, both throwing and running the football, and had 3 touchdowns. For Baylor, a team with guys on defense, that's just not good enough for them. And you know that their coach definitely the next day in film room absolutely gave it to them players. Baylor's got some guys there, like Jalen Petrie's their safety linebacker hybrid, had a really good game. He had like 3 tackles for loss, 3 passes defended, and a fumble. It wasn't enough for them, and for them to give it all to a team that was very hurt coming in, it's not good enough for Baylor. If they really want to be seen as a contender in the Big 12 this year, with it coming down to the wire, you can't have games like that.
I mean, yeah, like you said, and the fact that like you said, Kevin, they didn't have their quarterback, they didn't have their coach, and that was the reason why Baylor were favored by 7.5 points, and for them to win this game, it was a tight matchup. Don't get me wrong, it was a good game, but I just think it's funny that they have that, and we do have our first comment, and that was from James. What's going on, James? Thank you for being in here as always. Hope that you're doing well, Mr. James. We will. I know you want to have your picks, so we will help you out with those if you do want to still do that. I know Ray's not here today, but we can still help you out. We got two good guys right down there that can help you out with some of that stuff. But yeah. So for them to not to have their quarterback, for them not to have their coach, you're like, oh, they're not gonna do that. And Morris, man, this kid, 29 of 41. I think that averaged around like 60%. This kid was playing a little bit more than 60% actually.
He's at 70% there, yeah.
70, there you go, yeah.
This game, yeah.
He played out his mind. 461 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, like no interceptions. Man, it's like who knew that was going to happen?
It just shows the difference between these two teams at quarterback, man. That's a hard thing for Baylor, Their quarterback Bohannon only threw it 20 times, yet turned the ball over twice, It's almost like, hey, is that the way to get Baylor? Do you force them to pass the ball? Yeah. I don't know. They haven't really had the shootout with many teams going through the air, so that was rough for them. It was just a rough game all around.
100%. Any closing comments, LaMarcus?
I'm gonna close it out. One thing I do know is that whenever teams pass the ball, so I know the issues basically with air raid and any run and shoot system is that a few picks, a few turnovers can change the entire momentum of the game, can change the entire game very quickly.
Yeah, and with you saying that, Bohannon, 2 interceptions, that was very costly in this game. Very costly. So
that's the game right there.
Yeah,
that's the game.
Definitely.
All
right, let's move on to our next game. Because this game got me excited. I'm sorry to say this, guys. But after seeing us lose to them, I was happy to see Michigan State lose to Purdue. So and it wasn't just a loss; it was kind of a smacking. It was like they actually, I don't know what it is about Purdue, but they play to their competition. Like they play to the higher teams, and they step up their games when they play these teams. 40-29. I mean, it wasn't even like they really limit, what Walker did. Although he still had 146 yards on a touchdown. But if there's one player that you can limit, try to limit him as much as possible. Let them, throw the ball as much as possible if they can. They did 30 attempts throwing the ball with Thorne. Kevin, what should take away from this one? Like, how did Purdue win this game?
Well, I mean, I think Aiden O'Connell's been one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the Big Ten this season, which, I mean, I did a whole, breakdown where I ranked all the Big Ten quarterbacks this year. There isn't a ton of great ones. A lot of it's tough, but he was a guy that he's been pretty dang good this year. I think that with such a big emotional game the week before for Michigan State, a game such as Purdue, a team such as Purdue the next week, who are a tough team, who have shown that they could beat a big team, it's a tough one because you leave so much of yourself on the field with a rivalry game that went right down the wire. You can kind of overlook a team like Purdue, and I just there was some costly mistakes by Michigan State's quarterback Thorne. That while his stat line looked pretty good, it's just it's football. One or two plays can change the outcome of a game, man.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue coming out with a lot of trick plays to really confuse the Michigan State team. And like you said, Kevin, the fact that they're coming off a huge win against Michigan, you know, and I give them all the credit when it happened. I was mad for about a week, but it was a good game, but a close game. But when you have those close games, a rivalry game, and two ranked teams, and then you lose to a team that isn't ranked, that kind of hurts you at the long run. It makes Michigan look a little bit better because they lost to a good team, but then Michigan State lost to a solid team, but a team that they shouldn't have lost to.
Right.
Lamarcus, what do you think about this?
Yeah, that's one of the points that I was gonna make. Like Michigan State, they definitely impressed by that win they got last week, or was that a week last week?
2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago,
2 weeks ago.
yeah, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that win, and I know Jerome hates it, but it's like you thought they were gonna be legitimate getting that Michigan win, but you just kind of see that it was the emotions of the rivalry that really helped them get that win, and not necessarily them being that good of a team.
Yeah, and this is another thing because a lot of people just don't understand the power of home games in college football. That game, if you have a huge rivalry game, two ranked teams, and you're home. I just dropped my keyboard, but you just have a ranked team, two ranked teams that hate each other, and the other team is home. They're the stadium's rocking. The stadium's loud, and and this is my problem with Harbaugh. And I said this last weekend. I'll be very brief on this because I can go on a huge rant. But you can't put a freshman quarterback in that only comes in a few times in a game and fumble the ball. I'm sorry. Like in a hostile environment like that, in a tough game, you just can't do that. We do have a comment on here, huh?
Excuses.
No, it's not excuses. It's just telling the truth. It's like as a I know, but it's like how I feel about Harbaugh. I have my love hate for the guy. Like you can't like I said last week. I think that he was thinking that he was a smart making a smart move, doing something like that, and cost us the game. You got a Facebook user that says, "Is this the same thing that happened to SEC? Everybody would be." Like, oh my God, SEC is so tough. Everybody can beat anyway.
Yeah.
But it's Big Ten, so they're gonna.
That's a good point. That's a good
point.
I agree. I
said
definitely
it's
agree.
like I said earlier, conference games, man, and almost obviously, I don't foresee the bottom dwellers beating a top team, but like any team can beat anyone in the conference battle. They're always the games that the teams go toughest for. And the programs in and out, the coaching scheme in and out, and it's just there's something heightened about those conference matchups. They're a lot more tougher and they're a lot more of toss-ups than people think.
Definitely. So yeah, and we'll see because these last couple of weeks, starting from this week coming up, you got a lot of rivalry games that's gonna really determine how the Big Ten shapes up. And Ohio State been looking kind of and we're gonna talk a little bit more about that later on, the team that they're playing this week. But let's get to our next game, and that will be Tulsa versus Cincinnati. I mean, this was a game Cincinnati was favored by 22.5. And they almost lost this game, and it definitely affected them in their rankings. I'm sorry, review Lamarcus. What was your takeaway from this one?
So I think it's unfortunate when teams who are P5 actually lose or get close to losing games that should be easily decided. Or the whoever ranks, they should look at
definitely,
it. So it's unfortunate that they're not able to dominate their in-conference and level opponents. It's kind of like we want to let you in based on your record and your big wins. But then when you go and compete against teams like this and almost lose, it makes you look inferior.
Definitely. No, I'm sorry for cutting you off. That was definitely Remy talking in there. I know he says Facebook user. I know that 100% Remy. So what's up, Remy? Thanks for being on here as always. Yeah, Ray was on here. He'll definitely turn you up for that comment. But anyway, yeah. So Captain, what's your take on this game?
Yeah, so I've been very vocal about my opinions on Cincinnati. Like I have so many people telling me that they need to be in the college football playoffs and all that, and it's just I know I'm going to contradict some of the things I said in the past one. I understand it. Conference matchups are really tough, but I'll
I
put it
totally
like
agree.
this: if Ohio State only beat Tulsa because Tulsa fumbled on the goal line, we would absolutely be calling them frauds right now. And that goes for every team. I mean, heck, we do it. We do it if Bama loses to a top 25 team and they barely beat them. We call them frauds and overrated and stuff like that. I don't know. Cincinnati just, they
I
don't.
mean, I agree. Like to piggyback off of that, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, you just got to take the top teams, right? Take a Georgia for example, because right now
Mhm,
Georgia's the most dominant team, right?
mhm.
So go by
I put a
matchup.
smile on
Take
his
even
face.
the top four, right? Take the top four.
Yeah,
Put UGA matchup UGA against Cincinnati. What's that score looking like?
I don't want to see that. I
Right, but think
don't.
about it, right? So a year or so ago when they played last time, right?
I just
When
don't think they're even close to the same team anymore, though.
they're not, and that's the point. They're not the same team, and I think with the inability of Cincinnati to recruit the same way or the same rate that Georgia does,
Hmm.
it puts it lacks consistency, and I think that's the biggest difference from P5
Georgia
G5.
look like
They
they're in the
do.
lead of its own.
And
They do.
that's the
They really
problem.
do.
We all love to pretend that sports are fair and equal and all that, and that everyone has the same chance. They don't. All right,
All
this
right,
is college football is so much different than the NFL because the NFL has parity put into it. Everyone has the same salary cap, and there's rules put in place for parity because the franchises and stuff like that. There is no parity from the recruiting that Bama can do in Georgia and what Cincinnati can do and the guys that they can bring in. So it's just I don't know. Cincinnati, I haven't been a believer all year. Their notable win is against Notre Dame. Notre Dame still doesn't impress me that much. They're not a team where I go, wow, they beat Notre Dame. They definitely can contend in the playoffs. I just I don't know. They've looked very weak these past 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
they've
and
looked very weak against some very weak teams, especially that
yeah,
Navy
and
win.
I'll add to what you saying, Kevin, because me and Race been talking about this all the time. That Notre Dame game, that defense did not look the same like last year. Last year they were like a top
Hmm.
five defense. That
Hmm.
defense was one of the best defense I ever seen, and like I feel like they only lost like one key guy, and their defense is not as good as they used to be. I mean,
No.
they still got Kyle Hamilton on defense, a couple of DBs on that game, and you're like, how are teams playing against them like this? It's just weird. And
I will
Cincinnati
say
definitely took advantage of that.
they did lose probably one of the most key members of that defense because I
Yeah,
think
he was.
Usa Koromoa did hide. He's the ultimate issue hider. I don't know. It's just Cincinnati to me just and it's exactly like you said down there. It's not fair at all. The same college college football, we every year struggle to find a
I
fourth
agree.
team who even can compete with the 1 and 2 seeds. We struggle
Mhm.
to find a fourth seed. The only four seeds who have ever done good are either Bama or Ohio State.
Yeah,
Every year we watch the sacrificial lamb of Washington, of Oklahoma. It's the same thing every single year. And I don't know. I just think Cincinnati when I look at some of the other teams that are around them, like Oklahoma, like Oregon, like Ohio State, I just think they're not even in the same class. Like they're more in the class of Wake Forest before they lost. Like that kind of. There's just I don't know. There's levels to it, man, and I just don't want to see Georgia versus Cincy, especially if Cincy can't take care of business against teams like Navy, against teams like Tulsa. Again, it's not fair. It isn't. But hey, it's college football.
And again, I truly think that college football committee is actually looking at stuff like that because they have dropped. I believe they are currently. Somebody knows it. Definitely let me know. They are. I didn't have it in front of me. They're number 5, and it won. They're number 5 and they won. So I mean, I hear you. They are still undefeated though. So
are they above Oklahoma or are they behind Oklahoma?
They are
for sure.
Oklahoma's 4.
Is Louisiana still undefeated?
So let me tell you now. So it's Georgia, Alabama, I'm sorry, Oregon, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan State, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's actually 8. Actually, there we go.
What?
Or Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's at 5. Notre Dame, and then they got Oklahoma State at 10. So that rounds out your top 10 right there.
I think that's still fair. I think that's still a fair ranking, though. I think honestly, with what's scary though is that I look at Cincinnati as a team that's definitely better than Oklahoma. They're definitely better than Oklahoma. So it's like once you get into that top 2, I think that's the only place that Cincinnati does not compete against.
Man, I think Oklahoma blows them out of the water with how Caleb Williams is playing. I'm gonna be honest. I still think this Cincy team might struggle with an SMU in the championship. Like they haven't had.
To be fair with Remy saying, Oklahoma's been so inconsistent, and
they're still undefeated though. They still are undefeated.
Right.
I agree.
But
I agree with Remy.
All right, when you have a Cincinnati win like they have against Tulsa, right? Do that compare to Oklahoma's comeback to Texas, who wasn't a good team themselves, and it was down almost 30-something points.
Hey, Texas were ranked. Texas were a ranked team.
I get that.
That's my thing. I look at the teams that a team like Tulsa. I don't know. I just don't think they're as good as even just some like a TCU, like a team like that, or a Kansas State. Like they're still tough teams. This
is how I look at it though. They're a tough team, but how I look at it is, a football game is hard to win regardless. It doesn't matter who you play. A football game is not easy to win, right? So you judge a team based on, because when we had the BCS, we had the BCS title game. You had to go undefeated. That was the calling card. It didn't matter. At some points, it didn't matter who you played. The point was win as many games as possible, and then we'll probably more than likely consider you and make you eligible for the championship. But now it's there's so many. They made it worse than the BCS because it's now how good is the strength of schedule? Is this team just is it a historic team who's used to being in it? So that's why we're holding them on a higher pedestal. Because in the BCS, a team like Cincinnati would have never gotten, would have never gotten any kind of consideration, even with the undefeated record, right? So once you start looking at it like that, then Cincinnati is definitely, they're a P5 team and they're in the top 5. Technically, by G5 and P5 standards, this shouldn't even be a possibility. So how are we even sitting here talking about it? I mean, obviously, they were able to beat a Notre Dame. The only thing that hurt Notre Dame, the only thing that makes the Cincinnati, the Notre Dame win with Cincinnati is that it makes it lessen is because they're not in the conference. I think if Notre Dame was in the conference, we would hold that win in way higher regard. But because it's Notre Dame who's not in the conference, I feel like it doesn't have as much association. So they don't, it's not as considered heavily.
So let's talk about before we get to our next team, let's talk about Cincinnati's last few games. And I want to know with those last few games, depending on how they're winning, I want to know from both y'all, are they going to be a team to be able to be in this playoffs? They got Florida State, who they play this weekend. They got SMU, which is probably the toughest last game, and then they got Eastern Coastal Carolina. They win out. Can they get into the top? I mean,
the only team they will have to. Okay, go ahead, Jacob.
Which Carolina do they play? They play Coastal or Eastern? Eastern. Okay, that's different.
I was about to say.
I was
about to say.
I think if they win out, they'll probably make the playoffs and then get absolutely destroyed, because that's the way it's looking. It's looking like they're going to go undefeated because they don't play really anybody, and I don't know. Most of these teams just don't impress me this year. I feel like there's such a standard between Georgia and everyone else this year, and most of these teams just aren't. Because most of these teams that are winning games, they're still not winning them impressively. Like Oregon's keeping some bad teams in there. Ohio State's doing the same thing. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm just not impressed by everyone, but since he's doing the same thing, but to just some teams that they realistically should be beating.
Their biggest games, Indiana's
been bad this year. Like Indiana's
been bad.
Team.
Yeah. You could say maybe Central Florida. Maybe, they almost lost to Tulsa. I don't know. I just can you really justify them, even if they go undefeated? Can you really justify them being a playoff team?
I think you can. I think you still can. I think the Florida State victory has to be very obvious. The win has to be very clear. They can't.
I think the SMU game has to be a clear win.
That's the thing. If they barely beat them, it's like. Again, where they – because that's the thing. Even I just look at what – I know people love to hate on Oklahoma, but they've looked great since Caleb Williams took over. It's how it is.
They look a lot better.
They've looked a lot better with Caleb Williams. So I just –
But think about it. Caleb Williams won a game against Alabama or Georgia. Think about it.
I don't know about Georgia because I don't think anyone could beat Georgia. But hey,
how I look at it like this,
Max
right?
Johnson can almost beat you a game against Bama.
But I get you, but look at it like this, right? Cincinnati has history. It's different when you've played a team before. One of the hardest things to do is beat a team twice, which is true. But also when you've played a team more than once in the past, and within a span of years, especially with a team like Cincinnati who's come on a rise, their players get a lot more confident and they become better against teams like Georgia. So I think in a situation like that, Oklahoma doesn't have a chance against UGA, but I think Cincinnati has a much better chance against a team like a UGA than Oklahoma.
I don't think anyone's got a chance.
Remy put a good question. Like, who did you put in though? Because you got Oklahoma, undefeated Oklahoma, who's been struggling all year. I mean, a lot better with Caleb Williams.
Well,
but then you got the one win Oklahoma who lost. I mean, Iowa State. I'm sorry, I couldn't say it. Iowa State. And who lost to Oregon early in the season, but also has a lot more harder games going up.
But that's my thing, because if Oklahoma stays undefeated, that means they win the Big 12 championship. If Ohio State stays undefeated, that means they beat Michigan. They beat Michigan State. Who is in the West Division for Big Ten? Trying to see who they would even face in the they're gonna beat someone tough in the conference championship. So by them going undefeated, they're gonna be really tough.
Yeah, I think we definitely. I'm not gonna lie.
Tough.
I feel like we did definitely discredit. Like Remy was right when he said we discredit the Big Ten, wins in the Big Ten, because it's definitely still a tough physical conference, and I feel like that just because we have the SEC, which is not the same conference that it was 5 to 10 years ago, it's not the same conference anyway. I think we still hold SEC based on their history and their reputation rather than the actual wins they're getting, because Texas A&M has always been a team that can beat anybody in the conference in the SEC. but yet they were one of the last teams to join a conference, right? But
Yeah.
they're one of the teams who we call Texas A&M, we call them Alabama beaters because in the past few years they've been the only team. The past 5 years they've been the only team able to actually beat Alabama in the conference.
Yeah, and if you want to listen to this, Ohio State, Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan. Last 3 games. All
If
three
they
of those teams
win
are ranked
all of them,
currently.
if they win all of them, and then they have to go through either Wisconsin or
Mm-hmm.
Iowa. So that's
Yep.
another ranked team that they would have to go through. That's what I'm saying. Like, if Cincy would have played all those teams, I still think Cincy's dropping a couple of them games. That's
Oh
just
yeah.
me. I'm not a
I
believer
agree.
of them. And that's my thing. If Cincy was playing like a Big Ten schedule, I think they're more likely to be a 3 or 2 loss team. And the conversation's kind of out of there. Is it fair to judge them off of the strength of schedule? I don't know. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes.
You kind of have to. You kind of have to.
That's like I
But
said, it's a tough thing.
yeah, and not to get into the whole other topics, but that's the thing about like Texas and going and Oklahoma going to the SEC. It makes it harder because now you're power up another conference,
Yeah.
and now it's going to be even harder to judge other teams because
Now Big
now you
12
got
doesn't
this.
mean anything now. There's no one
Yeah,
in the Big 12 now. It's like
exactly,
your concentration everyone into like 2 conferences now. And it's like what's even the point of having conferences anymore?
hmm
Like let's like
exactly.
yeah, it's rough. Like I don't know. All that to say, Cincinnati didn't impress me this week in their win against Tulsa.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, well, I don't know what happened to Lamarcus. Maybe he could get back on, but let's get to our last game real quick, Kevin, and I was the Alabama versus SMU, LSU.
LSU,
Sorry,
yeah.
LSU. They, LSU been very for a lack of a better word, they've been very sus this year with their defense. I was very high on their defense,
Mm.
and they've been very suspect. And you got this Alabama team who's always been the high praise team. They have the best recruiting ever, always every year. Um, Almost losing to LSU 14-20. And the craziest thing is that Alabama only has 6 rushing yards.
Yeah.
6. I'm
Mm.
gonna let you go first, Lamarcus. Welcome back, by the way. What's your take? What's your take on this game, man? Like they almost lost. They're currently ranked still number 2 for God knows why. What's your take on that?
So you said was I correct hearing you? Did you say 6?
6, like this many.
Okay,
I can
so
count in one hand, two
so
hands. This many.
so
Yeah.
first of all, one thing I can say is any Alabama team who rushes for only 6 yards tells me one of two things. Um, One, they were definitely testing something. They were trying something out. They have to because with the running back stable, with Bijan Robinson and the others in the stable of running backs they have, they can get more than 6 yards on one carry. So one thing that showed me was play calling was on a different tune this week. They were had to be trying out something, maybe getting ready for late in the season, a different type of strategy, maybe something like that. But for Alabama to only have 6 rushing yards, that just tells me one thing: either they were having issues with ball security, where they were worried about that, or they were trying something out because that's definitely uncharacteristic. But regardless, I think they're still one of the best teams in college football. LSU's not a bad team. I don't know why we just look at LSU like they're just awful.
Oh yeah.
I think they're just I think they're just not a team, especially a conference opponent. Like LSU is
Yeah,
and Alabama is a rivalry game. We all know that.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, LSU, but and when I said that, I wasn't discrediting LSU at all. I know they're a struggling team. They've been riddled with a lot of injuries on that team, so that definitely hurts, a team. But it's just like for it's this is still an Alabama team. You give me a full LSU team, and you expect Alabama to still dominate in that game. So for a LSU team, like I said, that are injury riddled, that been struggling, they only won by 6 points. And the game, I mean, it was 14-7 at halftime. Those very close. Um, but it was very, very little scoring in the second half of the game. A lot of passing. Not, I mean, again, like we said about these other teams, but they had 30 something yards, 20 something yards. This team, a team that just had Najee Harrison go crazy last year, only has 6 rushing yards in the game this year. It's just crazy to me. Jacob, what's your takeaway from this one?
Well, this isn't the same Bama team as last year. And you look at the line, Harris is gone. So is Alex Leatherwood. So is Landon Dickerson. So is Deontay Brown. You're losing a lot of key members now to that line, a lot of experienced members of that line. All three of those dudes were all senior eligible. I'm pretty sure Dickerson missed the Senior Bowl because of his injury, but both Leatherwood and Brown were both Senior Bowl guys. Shout out to the Senior Bowl, So they lost a lot of experience on their line, and Brian Robinson Jr. isn't quite the same back that they've had in years past. Obviously, because they're Bama, they're going to have another dude up and coming next year. But, Robinson's not the same dynamic threat as the other guys. He's kind of like that just fall forward type of guy. So LSU really did a good job at stopping that run game. To their credit, though, Bryce Young has looked phenomenal this year, and he looked phenomenal yesterday. Jameson Williams had a great game. Yesterday, it didn't happen yesterday, but you know what I mean. I don't. It just doesn't look like the same Bama team we've seen for the past decade. They haven't been able to run the ball like they have in years past, and they're asking their quarterback to do a lot more. And luckily for them, Bryce Young has stepped up to the challenge. And luckily for them, their defense has been very good. And lucky for them, Max Johnson missed a lot of throws. He missed a lot of throws, and realistically, they should have lost that game, despite Young having a great game.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's funny because Alabama was number 3, not number 2.
Yeah, so like quality wins.
Quality win, I guess.
Quality win, I guess. They you notice they keep ranking teams that they've beaten higher than they should be so that they have more quality wins. And I like Bama. I still think Bama's the second best team in the country. It's just
I agree.
But their resume doesn't say they.
It's still kind of a bias for Alabama. I mean, if Alabama loses a game, they still can be in the playoffs with 2 losses. You know what I mean?
Until they're proven wrong, I'm still thinking they're the second best.
I think what makes it hard is like for the past few years, Alabama's changed identity. Whereas the first half of the decade, first 7 years of the decade of them winning national championships, they didn't have to rely on their quarterback. I think what's changed dramatically is now they have to actually rely on quarterback play to win games. Where it kind of handicaps you because if your quarterback's not hot, he's the person who touches the ball every play. He used to just be a surprise player who could come in like a Blake Sims, come in late in the game, make one spectacular play to get you in the game, and then let your defense and your run game do the rest. They're not that team anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%, and that just tells from the receivers that they've put in the league, the last couple of quarterbacks they've been put in the league. It just tells you that their identity definitely changed. But let's get off of this, man, because we've been talking about these reviews for almost an hour now. We're gonna try to run through our pick'ems. Before we do that, Remy said, Bama loses a couple years straight and doesn't win championship every other year. They're gonna be
they're gonna get the benefit of the doubt, rightfully so. Yeah, because even if they lose a couple games, it's like you still expect Saban to right the ship, and they could lose 3 games and still win the chip.
And that's the rough thing about it. I mean, it's kind of unfair, but it's still Alabama. I get it. I don't know. Let's get off of that though.
I mean, we're gonna get about it. It's fair. It's fair.
You said it's fair?
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say it's fair especially when UGA has the number 1 recruiting class over the past few years. So why aren't they a national championship winners? Makes you think.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into our pick'ems for this week, and I'm gonna put up me and Ray scores. So obviously these guys haven't been picking. Me and Ray scores. I am getting killed right now.
He is
I am
killing
getting
you.
killed. And the funny thing is, like I thought last week, me and him
Yo.
only had one game that we had different, and I still lost that one. And I thought I was gonna win. It was a close game. I'm like, I forgot what game it was. But actually, I can tell you that it was the what game was it? Kentucky versus Tennessee. We were gonna talk about it tonight, but we ran out of time. But yeah, I lost in that game. I did wrong in that game. So since I got my guys here, I'm gonna have you guys help me out with my pick'ems. So you're gonna help me out. You're gonna convince me which way I should go with my pick'ems. You're gonna get Ray's pick'ems later, and then we're gonna talk about it next week when Ray's back on. But I got my guys with me. I got my support. We're gonna make this better. We're gonna get this right. So I want you guys to help me convince me to go a certain way so we can beat Ray. So let's get into our first game. Like we got UNC versus Pitt. Marcus, I'm gonna have you go first. I'm gonna get while you're doing that. I'm gonna get the spread for that. And the spread is Pitt is favored by 6.5 at home.
Are we going by spread?
Pitt is favored.
Hey, I don't go by spread. Ray goes by spread. I don't. So,
well, that's how he keeps beating you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. Okay, so I'm gonna go based on UNC's ability to score. I think that even at home, I think UNC still even away, I think UNC still a good team. I mean, they can obviously put up points. I'm not sure about their defense, if they will be able to hold up. But I think against Pitt, they'll be able to come over to win. I like UNC.
All right, Kevin.
I got Pitt. I think Kenny Pickett absolutely shreds their defense apart. Hartman just absolutely shredded their defense apart. They can't really stop anybody right now. And I don't know. I just think that UNC is too volatile for me to bet on. They can win this one, but they're just so volatile right now. I like safer things.
I'm gonna go on the side with Kevin. I'm sorry, Marcus, but I agree. Like he left. He left last week. Yeah, he was like, I'm out of here. No, he been having internet issues, but I agree with you because like we just talked about UNC's defense just gave up 55 points now. 55 points. So I'm going with Pitt too. I hope Ray disagree with me.
Pitt's defense is better than
favored, so he's gonna go with Pitt. I know he is. But let's get to our next game. Mississippi State versus Auburn. Mississippi State is favored by 5.5. Who are you picking on that?
Really? They did just they did just have a big win.
They did.
I think I'm gonna still go Mississippi State here. I hate betting on Auburn, man. But I don't know. It's the hard thing. Auburn's the better team in almost every area. Auburn's the better team. It's just I need Bo Nix not to get in his own way.
And I've been eating my foot on this all season long, and I have been going against Auburn. But I like to go. This is what makes me different from Ray. He's gonna look at that spread and he's like, "Oh, Auburn's at home and they're not favored. I'm going with Mississippi State." I already know how he's wired. And he goes, "I'm going by what I see, and I'm going by the hotter team that's been winning lately. You know, even though I don't trust Bo Nix, I don't.
It's very fair.
You just said. But I'm gonna go with Auburn on this one, just because
home really helps. Being home really
helps. We just talked about that. They're a hotter team, and Bo Nix have not been getting in his own way lately. He's been playing fairly. He's been playing enough for them to win. He's not playing for them to lose. He haven't been playing for them to lose.
I wouldn't put no money on this one, definitely, but
I would not either. This is right. And James, if you're watching this, I don't play for money. So if you listen to me, God bless you. But I'm going with what I know, what I see, and what I'm hearing, and how I feel. That spread is not close enough for them to be at home. But I'm still gonna go Auburn on this one. All right, let's get to our
Don't
next
throw
one.
this one in your parlay, man. Don't do it.
This one is, I'm just gonna put this down now. I'm picking Michigan versus Penn State. I want to hear what you guys say though.
Yeah, I think Penn State's going to give them a bit of trouble. I don't think this is going to be particularly a high-scoring game because Penn State's got a really good defense. It's just I don't trust Penn State's ability to put points up right now because they can't run the football. Like they have a committee of 3 backs, and none of them have looked particularly great this year. The O-line's just okay, and Clifford's still Clifford. Jahan Dotson can't do everything. And that Michigan D-line is incredible. I think Michigan's going to – it's harder because it is in Penn State. It's a conference match, but I think Michigan's just a better team.
Michigan's used to playing in that house.
It's the battle of the coaches that are always on the hot seat because neither are that great.
No, seriously. But this is the thing about this game, and I'll be real brief about it. Mm-hmm. You hit on the point right there because Penn State has not been playing good on the run. Mm-hmm. They really thrive on throwing it deep to Dobson, who's an incredible wide receiver. But you got to think about Michigan. Our secondary has been a lot improved last year. Yeah. I do think we have a really, really good safety tandem back there with Hawkins and Daxton Hill.
Very good player.
And that pass rush. I mean,
he's not going to have time to throw it. He's not going to have time to get them.
Exactly. Jabba and Hudson.
Both are great players. Both are great first-round talents.
Yeah. So if you want to try to pass on them, that's up to you. But
I just don't think Penn State's that great. I just don't think Penn State's that great this year. I never really bought into them this year, but
difficulties. All good though. Yes. I believe that's LaMarcus talking right now. So. Yeah, it's all right, man. You got to the tail end. You got to the promised land. It's all right, man. But yeah, I do agree that it is going to be a tough game. It's going to be a good game. The thing about Michigan though, we always lose to a team that have a elite running back, and Penn State don't have that.
Yeah, no, for the first time in what seems to be ages now.
Yeah, the Saquon Barkleys, the Jonathan Taylors,
the Journey Brown. Yeah, they don't have no one this year. Penn State. I don't know. This is going to be one of those games that could get a lot of heads to turn about James Franklin here, and I've been particularly waiting for it for years now. That's me getting a little state of the program talk into here. I don't trust this Penn State team.
All right, let's run through our next couple of games real quick because we need to get out of here. We're running over an hour. But let's get to our next one. We got Oklahoma versus Baylor. Who are you picking in this one?
Oklahoma. Caleb Williams has been really good. Baylor's coming off of a loss. They're going to force Baylor to pass the ball, and that's trouble for Baylor. Taking Oklahoma.
As much as I hate to do Oklahoma, I think they're going to win this game. I mean, I would love to see them lose.
Baylor just can't keep up passing the ball, man. They can run the ball. Yeah. I like Abram, but they can't throw the ball. And they're going to throw some picks, and they're not going to be able to keep up. Caleb Williams is the truth.
It's so unfortunate because I've been saying Oklahoma is so bad this year. But I have to admit, Caleb Williams playing a lot better than a Spencer Rattler. He really is. Yeah. They're still undefeated. Like, no matter how I feel, they're still undefeated.
Yes, they are.
So, he got wait.
Boomer, baby.
Even though they won't win the Natty, I agree with that. But I'm going with Oklahoma as well. Again, if Spencer Rattler was playing, I would be like, all right, yeah, I'm picking.
But they got a real quarterback back there now.
Spencer Rattler will end up at UAB. Wow.
I've heard Oklahoma State. I've heard USC. I don't know. We'll see about them.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that. That's gonna be very interesting because me and Ray talked about this before, so I'm not gonna say it again. I'm not gonna say it again.
Been rough
Let's get to K-State versus West Virginia. And Captain, we were talking before this came up. This is a tough game for you. You said
Pick'em game, yeah.
yes, pick 'em game for you at least. But for the line right here that I have, K-State. I'm sorry, West Virginia is favored by 6.5. Who are you picking?
Well, here I was not looking at the lines, thinking that West Virginia was going to be my underdog play, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I think West Virginia can pull off. It's weird, isn't Kansas State like 6-3? West Virginia is not even.
they're 4-5.
All
West
right, I'm
Virginia.
adding that to my bet slip, but I'll
The,
take the points with K State there, but I think West Virginia could win. I think West Virginia can win that game.
this one, I'm conflicted on this one as well. I'll give you that.
I just this isn't a game I'm going to be tuning into.
Yeah. He picking West Virginia. I think this is gonna be a better game than a lot of people thinking. Um, I hate to say this, but I've been on the K State train since they got my man Deuce. I love that
He's
kid,
good.
and with him and Skylar Thompson, I think they're a really good offense. Their defense worries me though, and
Mm-hmm.
that's West Virginia's strength is their offense. So.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one.
I'm picking this as a pick 'em, but since I'm not like you are, Kevin, but since I'm not doing that, I'm gonna slightly because I know Ray's gonna pick West Virginia. I'm gonna say K State. I'm just gonna go there. I've been riding that horse all week,
How about
all
to say
year.
that?
They've
Yeah,
been
they seem
playing
like
very
a
well.
very one.
They've been playing very well, so I'm gonna stay with that one for this at least. All right, let's get to our next game. We got Iowa versus Minnesota. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it right. Minnesota. Who are you picking on that one?
So I can tell you who's not going to win this one. The fans. It's going to be a bad game. This is going to be a bad game. I remember a terrible Iowa matchup with Nate Stanley and Shea Patterson from a couple years back. It's going to be exactly like that. Both teams are going to struggle to get like 14, 17, 20 points here. I think Iowa's going to win, though, because I just think they might be able to slightly move the ball more than Minnesota, because I don't trust either of these quarterbacks, man. I just hope both teams run the ball because this is gonna be rough. I do not want to watch this game.
I agree. This is one of those Big Ten games that I'm just like,
It's one of those Big Ten games that you tell your children that you have
one
to
of those.
watch.
You get one every once in a while. You're just like,
Yeah, typically it involves Michigan, but not this year.
For sure. All right, let's get to our next one. Miami versus Florida State. Who are you picking in that one?
Miami, Tyler Van Dyke's been really good recently, has really injected life into Miami. They've beaten some pretty dang good teams lately. I mean, they beat Pitt, they beat NC State, I believe. They beat Georgia Tech, who's a tough out. I'm going Miami. He looks really good right now. And Florida State's in there.
I'm going 100% the same way because of the same reasons. Their new quarterback played very. I'm clicking everything with my new keyboard.
Oh,
but, yeah, you see that, right? But
yeah,
everything's going crazy over here. You got FSU. Wow.
I think it might be close because Florida State can run the ball, and that's always an option to make games close.
Yeah.
I just think Miami's a better team, and Van Dyke's been really good.
Van Dyke has
been
impressed me. Like, he looks really good. He looks way better than what's his name?
It looked better than King did at the start. Yeah.
King. I mean, King was so indecisive.
It happens when you come with a major injury, man.
But these two teams, I mean, I wish Ray was on here because these two teams, we've been talking about them. This
is a rivalry game.
Me and Ray just like ill about like all season.
So, this is a big rivalry game though, so it can go either way. I said these interstate matchups can go either way.
And to talk about the spread, Miami is favored by 2.5 away, so that tells you a lot right there. But
I'm taking that all day. I'm taking that all day.
So I know Ray's gonna eat that one up.
Yeah,
all right, let's get to our next game. USC versus Cal. Who are you taking in that one?
Neither. The game got canceled.
Game got canceled. You did say that. So that was the game that we were
not
supposed to talk about.
I got that one. Point for me.
You're right.
Yeah.
for you. You got
There
that
we
one.
go.
All right. LSU versus Kansas. Who you taking that? Arkansas. Sorry.
This is a flip of the coin one here.
Yeah.
After what I saw from Johnson last week, I think I'm gonna have to go with. It's a shame. This should be Stingley versus Burks, but we're not getting that. I'm gonna go with Arkansas. Are they?
I
Yeah,
know.
I'll go with Arkansas. I guess I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the LSU train all year. I think it's time for me to get off of it.
Like great, they're winning.
I mean, don't get me wrong. They played very tough against a Alabama team. Very tough.
They did. I just think Bama. I also think Bama shot themselves in the foot a bunch because they had like 2 missed kicks as well. So yeah.
100%. I'm looking for the game, and for some reason I don't see it on here. But to look at the line, but there it is. Arkansas is favored 2.5 away. I was gonna pick Arkansas anyway.
Ooh, it isn't. I think that'll detract me from like putting money on it, but it won't detract me from just saying they'll win.
Yeah. So yeah, they're favored by 2.5 away. I am gonna take Arkansas, but again, like Kevin saying, this might be a close game.
Yeah, it could also just blow up in our faces there.
Yeah. Speaking of close games, we got another close game. Wake Forest versus NC State. Who are you taking in that one? By the way, NC State is favored by only 1.5 points away.
I'm taking that, but
I'm sorry. Wake Forest is favored at home 1.5 points.
I am not taking that. Okay. I think this has the potential that we have the idea because both offenses are really good.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that North Carolina State's defense is going to be able to get more stops than Wake Forest's defense will. Because North Carolina State's their opponents only average 16 points a game right now. So even if Sam Hartman keeps dealing, I think Leary's also having a great year, and their running back Knight's really good as well. I just think that it's going to come down to North Carolina State making 1 or 2 more stops than Wake Forest can. Because it doesn't look like Wake Forest can stop anyone this year. I mean, North Carolina put up a lot of points. Army put up a lot of points. You know what I mean? So I like North Carolina State here, and not just because I'm biased towards Jersey's finest there. I just think they're playing really good football. They're a good team.
Yeah, I'm going to go Wake Forest in the close game. I mean, this is a pick 'em for me, but I just think Wake Forest's offense is just so good, and I think they're going to be able to weather what their defense is not going to be able to withstand.
If you're going to watch one game this week, I would definitely look out this one because there's going to be some fun football in this one. Both ranked, both great offenses, both conference. I love this matchup here.
100%. All right, let's get to our next game because this one actually surprised me. That's why I had this
one. We got another one. Oh.
Notre Dame versus Virginia. Notre Dame is favored 5.5 away, but the fact that this is stacked even that close surprised me. I'm taking Notre Dame. I'm just going to straight up say that. I'm taking Notre Dame. But I want to know who you're taking, and do you think it's going to be as close as they're kind of predicting?
I would consider the points here because Brennan Armstrong's been having a really good year this year. When they asked about Kyle Hamilton whether he was going to play on Monday,
that's a big decision too.
Kelly said I don't know, which isn't a great like feeling towards that. I don't trust Cone that much. I'm going to take Notre Dame. I think this could be an ugly win for them. Like I don't trust their offense enough to blow anyone out right now. I just think they're slightly more talented than this Virginia team. Like I think that's a really good line right there. Like I like where they put that line because it's enough for me not to bet on it. But I'll take Notre Dame.
I'm going to be 110% completely honest. I have not been paying attention to Virginia since Chris Long.
So Virginia just has these absolute shootout games. Like they had their bye week this week, but the week prior against BYU, the game was like had like over the game finished 66-49. Their previous game was 48-40. Previous game was 48-0 where they beat Duke. They put up points, man. Armstrong's having a heck of a year this year. What's weird is the only team that's managed to keep them from scoring a lot is Wake Forest, who can't stop anyone. But since then, they've been on an absolute tear on offense. But they can't stop anyone on defense right now. They're in like the borderline top 10 for offense, and they're in like the bottom 30 in the country for defense, which says a lot because you're usually amongst some terrible teams down there who can't do anything.
Definitely.
I'll go Notre Dame, though.
I'm taking Notre Dame as well. All right, let's get to our next game because this game is actually a game that I last minute added on here. So you know how it is when this is a last minute add on. It's a good game. We got Texas A&M versus Ole Miss. I don't know how I missed this game originally. I don't know if the line moved or something like that, but now it's a very close game, and I'm trying to look for it now. Here it is. What's it? Oh, Texas A&M versus.
I feel like Ole Miss is going to be favored because everyone's bought in on the Matt Corral hype.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm trying to find it now. Oh man, I can't find it all of a sudden.
Wow, this is 11 versus 12 here. Wow.
Yeah. 100%. So.
Wow, man.
So let me
both 7-2. Doesn't look like there's any major injuries. Looks like Corral's cool.
So where is it?
I don't know. Their last three matchups, Texas A&M's won, but of course those were during the Kellen Mond years. So
yeah. So man, here it is. All right. So we got Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. Ole Miss is favored at home only by 2.5.
It is at home. That is.
So this is basically a pick 'em. This is basically a pick 'em for them.
Yeah, I'm trying not to because I spend a good chunk of my day telling Eagles fans my opinions on Matt Corral. So I'm trying not to be too biased against Ole Miss here. Something in my heart tells me Texas A&M's going to win this one. Like I feel like Calzada has been pretty dang good this year. Yeah, I don't know. This one could go either way. They're both very good.
I agree. I'm going to go with Texas A&M, and the reason why is that Texas A&M is a better talented team, in my opinion. And the thing was, like, in the beginning of the season, me and Ray was like, "What's going on with Texas A&M? They're so talented, but they're not winning for some whatever reason." I think now they're starting to get it, and they're starting to pick it up, and they started get that identity that they didn't have in the beginning of the season, and it's actually working out for them. Now they're 7-2. They're ranked 11 at this point. They've been looking very, very well the last couple of weeks. I'm going Texas A&M. I told you, I go with the hot teams. I go with the hot teams in Texas.
I mean, they're on a 4-game win streak now. They're on a 4-game win streak where they've beaten 2 ranked teams there without their quarterback really having to do much. And their losses have all been pretty close losses. I mean, I just
this is a team that I had hope for in the beginning of the season. Say it again.
Yeah. They're just their defense has so many good guys on it. They got a really good running back. Like I think they're just a better team. It's just Corral's having a good college season.
I agree. Well, that's gonna do it for us today, man. We are almost at 1 hour and 20 minutes. You can tell we tackle some great football when we're talking that long. So we definitely enjoy this stuff, and we always have fun doing this with my guys. You know, Lamarcus is not here anymore, and I'm still pressing stuff on my keyboard. But I'm gonna get it right. But Lamarcus, thank you for being in here. If you're still watching, appreciate you always being in here. And Kevin, as always, come with the smarts, come with the compelling arguments. I do appreciate you. I appreciate you coming here and helping me out because I'm trying to win Ray. I'm trying to beat Ray this week, and you gave me some good pointers. I need a major comeback. I need a major comeback. So we're gonna beat Ray. We're gonna do this together, man. Me and you, man. We got this. We got this. Keep it tight, man. Keep it here, man. But thank you guys for checking us out. If you keep pushing yourself, Mark Cooper. Thank you guys for being in here with us. We do appreciate you being in here. We love football. We love our commenters. So thank you for being here. If you wasn't able to comment on here and you're not watching this live, definitely go on our YouTube channel and go in our chat room and comment section at the bottom. You put anything in there, we will respond back to you with any comments that you have or any pickums or whatever you might want to have or you might want to talk about. We will reply to it. So put it in the chat room right there. Also, make sure you check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter on our website, insidethehashes.com, where you find all the content. We got gaming, we got football, we got player interviews, we got a lot of players that we talking about. We interviewed them. So make sure you go in there. Check that out, insidethehashes.com. I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones. We got my boy Captain, keeping it real up in here. Thank you guys so much for checking us out, and we see you next time. Enjoy your football, enjoy your weekend, and be safe.